What's up with this animal? Why there's so many dudes and so few grills?
It's a reverse harem! This is a reverse harem!
What? I guess the question becomes, are reverse harems as bad as standard harems? Ouran employs a series of loosely tied together vignettes that act as an effective choice for delivering the content. Ouran wants to entertain the audience by being goofy, gaining sympathy for its cast, and pandering to the wish fulfillment premise. A linear storyline that develops and builds on itself would take away from its core objectives. The topics and humor in episodes tend to be hit or miss.
No, I can't. I'm an employee here and you're one of our honored guests. It's not allowed.
But who's to find out if it's only the two of us? Stay here with me and silly rules will no longer matter.
Senpai?
Where a great deal of them offer entertainment, some of them are tedious and annoying at best. The most obvious example are the Lobelia women. I get that they're making fun of modern day feminism, dragging an unsuspecting woman into the lesbianic, man-hating fold, holding her there with false emotional pleas that disguise a spiteful personal agenda, complete with a choir of cheering drones. It's there. The problem is that where these elements are cleverly woven into the script, it seems strangely joyless, which is an odd departure from the rest of the production. Ouran tries to present itself as a parody of sorts, making fun of itself for using tired tropes in situations that are not feasible. The problem is that they don't offer commentary or even make an effort to satirize these aspects. You do not get credit for being witty just because you say that you're aware that you're using the same garbage that everyone else uses. Doesn't make it funny, it's just trying to excuse its own laziness. Ouran has a way of ending its episodes on an uplifting note. This aspect goes a long way towards allowing the audience to overlook its obvious flaws. The individual characters are generally interesting, and Ouran has a way of making the hardships that they endure translate into what they have become in an appealing manner. Their backstories are portrayed candidly and are effective at generating sympathy from the audience.
When I was growing up, I never really had any friends that were my age. My mother would get sick very easily. I was always worried about her, so I didn't go out and play much. Instead, I would do my best to cheer her up. I'd always sit beside her and play the piano. That's probably why now I love playing these silly games with all of you.
The audience gets a look beyond the silly facade that they wear. Under the showmanship and money, there are some remarkably talented and competent people. Where the characters do develop to an extent, it's almost negligible. The charm of the cast is predominantly in the characteristics that are revealed through their interactions with Haruhi and during flashback sequences. The area where Ouran's harem roots show the most is in the heroine, Haruhi Fujioka. She's about as generic as it gets, nearly devoid of personality. The creative staff erred too closely on making her relatable and forgot to make her into an intriguing person. For all of the talk that they wind up having about how much the club means to them, the community of Ouran is rather anemic. Kyoya, Honey, and Mori are very detached from the rest of the group, only interacting when the plot calls for their presence. The interactions between the rest of the group are strangely linear. The twins mock Tamaki. Tamaki is infuriated by the twins in response. Tamaki exacerbates the situation through ignorance, and Haruhi voices her displeasure at his behavior. The English dub is more bombastic and energetic, while the Japanese dub is more purposeful and exact. I wouldn't fault someone for choosing either one. They are stylistically dissimilar, and that's pretty sweet. You can have two very different experiences at nearly the same quality, each having its own strengths and weaknesses. Big Mignon is fantastic as Tamaki. He brings Tamaki's energetic and attention-hungry nature to life. His odd vocal register lends itself to oversweet, flamboyant characters. Greg Ayres and Todd Habercorn are very fun during their homosexual asides. Monica Riel is uproarious as Renge, portraying her as completely unhinged. Caitlin Glass's Haruhi is relatable and grounded. Her style provides a great juxtaposition to the rest of the cast's bombastic portrayal. The Japanese dub has a certain richness, coupled with an added awareness of differentiated cultural perspectives. I typically don't give any credence to the sub versus dub argument of meaning inherently being lost in the redubbing of a production, but Ouran is a story about an average Japanese girl interacting with young societal elites. The story is in part a commentary on Japanese societal implications. The Japanese dub is better at drawing attention to this theme. Mamoru Miyano is a bit of an odd choice for Tamaki, in that Miyano is best when he's playing a character that is a little bit sweet with a ton of spice. Tamaki is all sugar and no spice. Miyano's method of delivery is a little bit awkward for someone as straightforward as Tamaki, but provides an adequate performance nonetheless. Maya Sakamoto portrays Haruhi much more tenderly, with an air of vulnerability. She is nothing short of stellar when Ouran is doing its best to pull on the audience's heartstrings. Masaya Matsukaze brings this really annoyed and impatient presence to Kyoya that enhances his pragmatic nature. The rest of the cast is generally unremarkable individually, but they are unremarkable with a purpose. The Japanese dub feels very measured and carefully direct. It's much more in line with Ouran's methodical and carefully presented style that leads up to a singular point of purpose. The fun moments aren't quite as fun in the Japanese dub, but the tender moments are so much more visceral. If you're looking for a fun sit, then the English dub will give you a lot of mileage. The Japanese dub is superior, but only if you're in the market for subtlety. The musical score is zany and is very complementary to the sillier moments, however it is largely absent from other scenarios. They do make a point of including some classical piano pieces that are performed by Tamaki to shed some light on his talented interior, which was a nice touch. The OP Sakuricus is excellent at generating excitement in the audience and focusing the series on its romantic theme rather than its comedy. But guy, aren't harem series all about romance anyway? Isn't that the point? Not really. Harem series are much more about the potential of a physical relationship in a largely ineffective comedy. The ending seems to be attempting to end each episode on a satisfied note, but is much less effective than the OP counterpart. Interestingly enough, the English dub includes an English reproduction of the OPs and EDs. Where I will agree with the masses that they are inferior, they are very listenable and well produced. The character designs are really simple and silly. The art isn't very detailed, but at least they managed to make the faces overtly expressive during comedic dialogue. The lack of facial detail dampens the impact of the emotional moments in Ouran. They do manage to make the high school look classy and detailed. The animation has a very interesting style of cutting to different frames. It follows an interesting rhythm that shapes Ouran into something of a hypnotic experience that's better than the sum of its parts. For all of its faults and trite implementation, Ouran is way more entertaining than it has any right to be. Ouran High School earns a 6 out of 10. Thumb subscribe. Cringe.
Rich people! Rich people!